another edition of The Point. If you've been attending 5 Point or listening to the Point podcast lately, you know that we've been bringing in some guests who were blindsided in life. And today, it's a little unusual. We do not have people who attend 5 Point. They attend a sister church just right down the road called New Image. And this is Mark and Christy Hood. And they're going to be sharing some of their story of how they were blindsided just a couple of years ago. But first of all, now how long have you two been married?
27 years.
27 years. Excellent. Now, are you guys from this area?
I am.
I'm not. I've been here since 96.
Okay. Now, where are you from, Mark?
Irmo.
Oh, yeah.
Columbia.
Okay. And you're a...
I went to Daniel High School,
Okay, so
grew up in the area. And
Well, cool. Well, again, thank you so much for being willing to come and share your story. And it's a tough story. And a lot of times, I was sharing with Mark and Christy a moment ago that when I counsel or when I'm with somebody, I can look them in the eye and say, I understand what you're going through because I've been there. But this is not one of those cases because I don't understand the pain that this couple went through when they were blindsided. So why don't you guys just kind of start off and tell us how you were blindsided a couple years ago?
Well, we went on our couples trip like we do every year for the past 20 years. And we always, it's a thing that you don't, it goes through your mind, you know, am I going to get that call? It's, you know, something happened back home. And we hadn't, for the past 20, 25 years, never got that call till a couple of years ago when we got a call from her boyfriend's brother that said something had happened
Now,
to Haley.
tell us who her boyfriend, who are we talking about here?
so our daughter's name's Haley Hood, and she was supposed to be meeting her boyfriend. They were going bowling, and she hadn't got to his house, so he went to her house.
How old was Haley at this time?
She was 24.
24.
She was 24, and she was going to his house, and she hadn't come. So he's like, "Mom, Haley was supposed to be here. Should I go check on her?" And because she's not answering her phone, or she's not. And he drove over to our house, and the door was a little cracked, and so he calls his mom back. Should I go in? You know, because he didn't want to, you know, just. Sure. And she's like, yes, you need to make sure she's okay, because it's not like her not to answer her phone or anything like that. And when he went in, he pushed open our kitchen door, and he saw her laying there. And he could tell there was a lot of blood and a head injury, and he could tell that she was hurt, but he didn't really know what had happened. He thought maybe she tripped and fell and hit her head or something. And but then he quickly realized that she wasn't breathing. And he didn't know at the time, because when he pushed the door open, her keys and her gun was pushed behind the door. She had a concealed weapons permit that she had a small gun that she carried in her purse. And when she was leaving, she went to pull her keys out of her purse, and evidently they caught her gun. Oh my God. And her gun came out and hit the floor, and when it hit the floor, it went off and hit her, which is not supposed to happen. It's a freak accident, you know. And so that's what. So he had to call 911 and all. And my heart still breaks for him that he has those images. So his brother called us, and they just kept saying Haley's hurt.
So when you say you received the call, that was
The call nobody wants to hear.
that was from your son?
No, that was from her boyfriend's brother.
Gotcha.
Because at that point he was trying to figure out, and
what to do.
He was a neighbor to a couple that was with us, so he went to them actually, and they called, and you know, like, he was there with them.
And how far were you from home at this time?
We were in Gatlinburg, so we were about a good 3 hours away, and it was already dark, and it was foggy. And
when did you find out that she had passed?
Before we left Gatlinburg.
Oh, so you knew already.
I kept asking everybody we would talk to. I'm like, is she breathing? is she breathing? Just tell me if she's breathing. I know there's an accident. I know there's blood, but is she breathing? How do I need to pray? I didn't know how to pray because I needed to know.
Of course.
And nobody would. And finally, someone said, Christy, I don't want to have to tell you this, but our Haley's gone. And I guess I knew in my heart, but so then I immediately had to switch modes. There was nothing to hope for. There was nothing to pray for, and I've never been in that situation. I've always prayed and God has answered. I mean, he's been very evident in our lives. I couldn't get pregnant and all I wanted was to be a mother, and he gave us Haley, and then he gave us Warren, and that was, I know they are gifts from God, and I knew he had plans for them. I knew he had great plans, and I'm like, how can this be part of your plan?
So upon finding out that your precious daughter had passed, and you still got this drive home, what were the conversations like during this time coming home?
I don't think we really talked.
It was very quiet.
Praying.
It was very quiet, and I knew that our family was at our house, and we didn't know what had happened at that point. We just knew that she was gone, and we had a lot of questions, like how, if she tripped and hit her head, or she,
They wouldn't let Warren in the house.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
Wow.
Or my mom, dad were there. They wouldn't let them. They weren't telling them anything.
So when did you find out exactly what had happened?
Not until we got home.
Wow.
And when we got home, we went in, and I don't know what I was expecting. I expected her to be there. I expected to see her. But in God's mercy, he is even good in that. They don't typically do this. But they had taken her, and someone from the police department had cleaned everything up. There was no sign except for the hole in our ceiling from where the bullet went straight up, because it hit her about here and then went up here and then exited. And
Right.
It was a hollow point.
And so we walk in, and I'm like, but I have to say, though, I did feel a peace. I mean, God was carrying us. He was already carrying us. And if I could say one thing to people, it's don't wait until a storm to have a relationship with God. You can't wait until something happens. I mean, of course he's there. Of course he's loving, and of course he's going to be there. But having already had a relationship with God and knowing how good he was, and living my life, our life, and teaching my kids that, God is first, and he held me, and he wrapped me up, both of us, in a peace.
Can't imagine going through something like this without Christ.
Yeah.
And the theme behind Blindsided has been not if something like this happens in your life, but when it happens, because you're going to be blindsided.
Right.
It is called
Right.
life. And the best way to be prepared is with that love relationship with Christ. So I'm going to ask you a couple of personal questions. What were your reactions towards God? Because you can say I was radically in love with God, but you just lost your child.
Right.
What were your reactions towards God through this?
Honestly, I wasn't angry at God. I wasn't angry because I knew, I was maybe angry at the situation and the way it
very well
happened.
put, yeah.
But I wasn't angry at God. And I even said from the very beginning, even that night in our kitchen, God is still God and God is still good. And that's been that no matter what, because I knew that this was an opportunity. As much as I hated having the opportunity, this was an opportunity to show people the difference in having God in your life when tragedy happens and not.
So incredible. Mark, what about you?
I was a little angry.
That's human nature. Yes, sir.
And I was questioning why. Why did this have to happen?
And then we say, why not? I know that we've served God and we've been active in our church, for 26 years, and we, but why not us? We have lived favor on our lives. My family, we haven't had tragedy. We hadn't have, and we had lived favor. So why not us? We've been blessed. But you just kind of think, I've had such favor, it's not going to happen. Yeah. But it doesn't mean God doesn't love us.
So often, people will ask me, all right, I've done what you've said.
Right.
Okay, I do come to 5 Point. We give, we serve, we read our Bible. We thought we're in the center of God's will. But God does not guarantee being in the center of His will that the storms are not going to come.
Right. And being a Christian doesn't mean life is easy.
That's exactly right. In fact, a lot of times it can be a whole lot tougher. I've heard pastors say, and they mean it with a really well-meaning heart, the best place to be is in the center of God's will. Yeah. Sometimes it is the best place to be.
But it hurts.
But it doesn't mean it's going to be the most safe, secure, fun place to be. All right, let's fast forward just a couple months. You've had the passing of your precious baby girl. You've had the service. 2-3 months down the road, where are you in your walk with Christ at this point? Because a lot of times when it happens is one thing, but now we move down the road and she's not with us right now.
Right. And it was hard. And I won't lie, on Sunday mornings we would wait and go in a little bit later and try to get out. Just it hurt to talk.
Well, people mean well.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah.
But you don't want that right now. Yes,
right.
I understand.
But I wanted to be in God's presence. I wanted to be in church. I wanted to show people that this is when you need Him most. This is not when you stay at home. This is not when you back off and
good for you. So often people get angry.
Yeah.
And when you need God the most, they turn their back and leave God.
And then to make it even worse, 3 months after we lost Haley, my nephew was killed in a motorcycle accident.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
And they were like twins. They were born 11 days apart, grew up together. It was Blake and Haley. And that was my sister's only child. And I'm not saying because you have other kids it helps, but I had Warren and Raleigh and the babies, and it helps distract you and keep you busy. Yes. And she had none of that. And so then there I am having to be strong for her because I know what it feels like. And so I want to say I didn't have the luxury of not trusting in God. I had to because at that point, our family, we didn't even know how to comfort each other. My mother lost 2 grandchildren. She doesn't know how to comfort her daughters because they've lost their babies, and it was difficult. It was hard to even know how to, but God was our lifeline. God was the only thing we could cling to. And I would just keep saying, I don't know what His plan is, but God is still God and He is still good.
And then last year she had heart trouble.
I have. I went to the emergency room thinking it was asthma, and my heart function was at 20%. And
they call it broken
heart. I didn't know that was a real thing. That they said that it could be that it could have been stress. It could have been when I had COVID. It could have been several things. But I had no problems before, and now I have a defibrillator implanted, and I was at high risk for sudden cardiac arrest, and so
it could be a lot of things because of what you've been through. Mark, what would you say as a father to parents who've never gone through something like this, but like you said, you get the phone call? What would be your words of advice or wisdom to people if they do get that phone call?
To trust in God and let Him heal you. Don't try to run away.
That's so good. That is so good. How did you guys do in reading your Bible through all of this?
I threw myself into the Word. I threw myself.
I asked that question if I didn't think that, and I can see in your eyes. Mm-hmm. You just drew to God, and it's going to draw you to God's Word.
Yeah.
And so that is so good.
We did the Grief Share program.
Wow.
and I did several Bible studies on my own. Just I threw myself into because I just didn't know any other way.
So I do believe the Bible, and it says that God does bring all things together for his good and for his glory. So 2 years later, how are you using this for God's glory now?
I actually spoke at a Mother's Day banquet last year about Haley, and I had several people tell me that, you know, how good it was for them. Sure. I was very nervous about doing it. And I didn't realize how much of a reach that Haley had. I mean, because she was raw and she was real, and she'd say anything to anybody. She didn't worry about hurting their feelings, but she loved people too. She loved, and several people had started a Love Like Haley, and so that has kind of been our goal, to love people like Haley. She had over 1,400 people come through the Receiving Friends. Wow. And I had people messaging me, I knew your daughter, I knew, you know, that I never realized. But she loved everybody. She didn't care who you were, what you did. If you had money, you were flat broke. She didn't care. She loved people. And so we have a friend that has started a recovery home, and it's actually the open house is Sunday. Monday will be 2 years anniversary since we lost Haley, and they have named it Haley's House in Haley's memory.
Incredible.
And it's a recovery home, like a transitional women's recovery home that I really believe is going to really help
make a difference in people's lives,
and make a difference in people's lives and make changes. And it's a you know, a program that's going to last 8 to 12 months for these women and give them, but most of all, they're doing it in a godly way. It's, you know, it's faith-based, it's Christ-based. And the fact that it's called Haley's House even has drawn more attention to it, and people are like, yes. Yeah. And so she's reaching people now. When people hear her story and hear what happened, and I feel like a gun safety issue, I really wanted to be able to use that as a platform, because that's not something we thought could happen, right. But it can, you know.
That particular model.
Yeah, and so
just it was a malfunction.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be able to drop a gun and it not go off.
Yeah.
Well, I have such a heart to see people who are religious fall radically in love with Jesus. Amen. And you can tell this is not a religious experience. This is two people who are radically in love with Jesus and are willing to accept his will and use it for his glory.
Yeah.
So I just want to tell you again, thank you.
Thank you.
Your story is overwhelming. It's heartfelt. I don't understand the seat you're in, but look, we see here in life, and God sees here. Years, maybe decades down the road, how God's going to use this. Just use this to help people and help grow his kingdom. I believe it's going to be a big deal.
I always told my kids, you know, I don't want you to live a life for Christ just because I want you to. That's right, yeah. I want you to feel how I feel.
In love with Jesus.
I want you to love and adore him and see the blessings of God. Yeah. But the blessings, you know, I mean, nobody's life is perfect. If it was perfect, then what would be the point of grace?
We'd all sign up then, right?
What would be the point of grace and mercy if we didn't need it? So,
again, I just want to tell Mark and Christy, thank you so much for being willing to share your story and what a story it is.
Thank you for having us.
And the point of all of this is very simple. It's not if, but when we get blindsided, the best defense we have is to be radically in love with Jesus. Till next time.